This week we officially enter our first thematic unit, which is entitled Communities in Us. Now, last week we were presented with the autoethnography prompt, and I said that you shouldn't get frazzled over the terms discourse communities and communities of practice, because we would be looking at them with further detail throughout this week's module, and we shall do precisely that. So this module will be helpful in the crafting of your autoethnography paper, due to the fact that it will help refine your understanding of communities of practice and discourse communities. So we begin here by clicking where it says here, Communities of Practice, Notes. So first step is to download that. And this is a synthesis by the article Communities of Practice, A Brief Introduction by Etienne Wenger. So I'm not asking you to become an expert on this concept. I just want you to understand essentially what's on these notes. Communities of practice have a shared objective or goal. They're a learning community where learning happens through interaction with other members. That's crucial. Some examples are a tribe surviving, engineers working on similar problems, and communities of practice can be either professional or even personal. So if you work out at the gym every week, then that's a community of practice. And the learning happens through interaction, because when you interact with trainers, or when you ask questions you ask questions to the people in there about how to do a particular exercise, and if they might correct you here and there, or give you a little tip for even being able to lift more weight, then that's an example of where the learning happens through interaction. So the goal of a community of practice is always ultimately to grow and to develop more in the field, right? There's always a shared objective or goal. It could even be a skateboarder, right? And so even when you're at the skate park, you're passed on tips and tricks through interaction, right? Which actually leads me to this next part. These are just some concepts just to bear in mind. In the article, Etienne Wenger presents us with these elements of communities of practice. So the domain is the topic of interest itself. So if we stay on that skateboarding example, then the domain is skateboarding. The community are the actual members who are part of that community. Well, let's just be more specific. Let's say street skating, okay? And, so when you're at the skate park and you're told, okay, maybe like flip your heel, I don't know, after hitting the tail or something, or some little tip or trick, then that's actually the shared practice. So that's the main thing. Another cool thing in the article is if we think about the professional community, so nursing, okay? To give the example of how when nurses are on their lunch break, even though it could probably be like at 2 in the morning because they have really long rounds, and let's say you're a nurse and you're on your lunch break and you see your friend who's also a nurse, and you're talking and you're saying, I have this patient who has this pain in his left thigh, and I've tried so many things, but I can't seem to help him feel any relief from that pain. So then the other nurse might say, oh, you know what? I actually had a similar situation, and I did this, that, and the third, and it worked. So then you try that too, and it works. So that little tip and trick that was passed on, that's the shared practice. I like this one too, the tribe surviving. So there was a series on, I think it was from BBC One, and it was called The Human Planet, and it was about how we as human beings have been able to survive in the harshest of environments. And it gives the example of the Tuaregs, who are actually nomads in the desert. And to survive, which is the shared objective goal in that case, to survive in that harsh environment, you need to actually know tips and tricks, right, that have been passed on to you by your ancestors. So where are the wells? Where are the oases? Where can you get, are there any places where you can get water, and even the actual sense of direction, the tips and tricks that are passed on. So that's the shared practice. So to help bring that concept home, remember, it can be personal or professional, just the same. So to help bring that concept home, we go to our next task. Let's click next. Oh, okay. So check this out. We were just talking about BBC. So in Africa, there's a tribe called the Maasai, and they are so gangster because they wait for lions to make a kill, and they just, like a real gangster, just gangsters, because they act as a unit. They walk towards the lion and just steal from the kill. If that's not gangster, I don't know what is. So here's your task. So watch this little clip and consider what's their domain, what's their community, what's their shared practice. So use the notes that you downloaded, this one, to help you out there. It's a really interesting clip, and they're so gangster. Remember to also reply to at least one classmate's post. So the community practice is the what, okay? It's the what. When we say the what, we mean the community itself, right? The learning community that they learn through interaction. There's a topic of interest, and then tips and tricks are passed on through interaction.